Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. And we're kind of doing this thing where it's a little bit different than us just going through protocols and processes and talking about conditions. We're kind of exploring a little bit more of the mystical sides of things, going beyond the logic and just kind of doing a little bit of these reflections. And over the last few weeks, we've been looking at patterns in our lives, like things that are unconscious, that where we get flashes of from time to time, but they're kind of running. They're a thread that goes through a lot of aspects of our lives, but we're not super conscious of them. They kind of get our attention and our awareness when they slap us in the face a little bit. And so, with that, this is very different than thinking of things from the point of view of symptom oriented, like I see this pattern, I want to get rid of it. We also want to kind of understand what it is. And so over the last few weeks, we kind of have done this little bit of exploration of this. And as we go a little bit deeper, in different traditions, they have different ways of teaching. We have things where like 2 + 2 is 4. And, this is how you spell this word. This is how you balance your checkbook. This is how you do the things that you do. This is of the logical mind. We want to step away from logic and look at more of the intuitive side of the mind, beyond the senses. Because as we look at things from the intuitive side of the mind, this is where the soul communicates. This is where we receive information and inspiration. This is where we have guidance and where we experience our conscience, right? And so how do we tap into this? And so there's like these ideas or these concepts. And, with some of the things that we teach in some of the classes, some of it's very clinical, some of it's very this or that. Things that are more on the mystical side, or they're less about technique and they're more about encouraging a kind of awareness or an awakening. It's not a massive awakening, but it's these little steps of like a awakening on a certain level, and then another little awakening, and then another little realization or awakening, right? And so here we're wanting to look at concepts or certain kinds of markers, right? Like certain things that when we perceive this and integrate this, because it is part of the intuitive mind, it shifts our awareness of these other things, and it shifts even how the logical mind works. You could say the logical mind goes through its processes based on where the intuitive mind is at. If it's aware of these things, then the logical mind behaves a particular way. If we're not aware of these things, they still happen. We're just not aware of them. It still impacts the logical mind, most times in a way that's not good, right? So in different traditions, we look at certain aspects of deities, or if like you're Catholic, it might be a little bit of like the saints or the angels, or in different traditions, like in Hinduism, there's the supreme God, and then there's these different aspects of God. And when we turn to Buddhism, there's these different deities, and even within this aspect of a deity, there's different sides or different facets of these deities. And so if you look at this, the idea of the deity and these different facets is to give you some form to connect to. But really what it's showing you is connect to the form, and eventually it will produce an essence, right? And so we've been going back and forth with like how you generate an essence. You don't just try to invoke the essence or tap into the essence. You go to the form, and then it produces the opposite. If you go to the essence, it produces the form, right? So you almost kind of do this like back and forth thing. So here, the concept that I would like us to address, and we had you last week, find an oil that you're inspired by. Like find some oil that you feel inspired, like, oh, I want to work this. Now, if you didn't do it, or if you weren't here last week, get inspired in the next 30 seconds, find something not from the logical mind, but just like this feels good. This feels like what I like, what I'm drawn to, or I feel inspired to do something that's different, right? So with this, what we want to look at is this aspect of time, not the oil time, but the idea or concept of time. And your perception and your ability to process and interact with this idea of time is actually, partially up in the mental body. It's partially in the logical mind, but a big part of it is in the intuitive mind. But you could also say that this concept of time is in the body. It's in the energy body. And if you were to think about it, where, if you really sat and go, okay, where is my ability to perceive time, process time, harness time, and, at times bend time, make time stand still, like shift into different perceptions of awareness, that where it feels like time shifts or time stands still, right? Where do you think that would be? Well, I was posed this question many, many years ago, and I did, it's up in my head, it's in my brain, it's on the right side of my brain, it's between the eyebrows. Actually, it's the sex chakra. And you wouldn't really think, or at least I wouldn't, that it would be the sex chakra. But this idea or concept of time is tied to the creative process, especially with the creative process in the physical world. In Kabbalistic teachings, this is known as the foundation for the physical world. So you could say the idea of cycles, which is divine intelligence, time is associated with this idea of cycles. And when we really understand this concept, we can shift our awareness and our perception very quickly and shift into different ways of thinking, almost with the snap of a finger. When we don't understand or are aware of this concept of time, the issue starts to become like a bit more two-dimensional. Like the more that we realize time, things start to change like in a dimensional way, right? But when we don't really understand this aspect of time, when we don't get the concept of time, not with our logical mind, with the intuitive mind, logic does weird things with this, right? And so this is why it's tied to a devotional practice, to a particular Dharma protector. And when we don't have this idea of time, when things are being difficult, our perception of time and the depth of time changes how our logical mind can process things. And, like an example is, when something bad is happening, it feels like it's going to it's happening forever. It's always going to be this way. Then 5 minutes goes by and we shift out of it, and it feels good, and it feels like, oh, it's always going to be this good. It's going to be this way. And I used to have this friend that she would, this is an example where she'd go, I lost my keys, and she would almost go into like a panic. And then I'd kind of joke with her and I'd go, are they lost forever? And she'd look at me very seriously and she'd go, yes. And then she'd go, it feels that way. And then she'd find them, a minute or two later, and I was like, oh, so it's all resolved. And she goes, now I have them forever. Like, I know that I have them forever, right? So this idea, when these patterns are happening in our life without having more depth in the concept of time, it magnifies our suffering in these patterns. When you understand, like, okay, things are transient, this will pass. Even though it feels intense, it will pass. And, we have a joke around here when something's going really well, like I'll kind of joke and I'll go, don't worry, that'll pass too. Like it passes, like nothing stays constant, it's transient. And this is about the law of cycles, like it is divine intelligence in motion. Nothing ever stays a particular way. But our drive a lot of times is to find this place of comfort, of stability, and let's pitch a tent, let's drop our anchor, we're sticking here. And we have limited our ability to engage this creative process that is beyond us dropping anchor in this particular spot. And so the other thing that happens with this aspect of time, this concept of time, is that it becomes very easy to get overwhelmed by things that are happening. It will even start to be like you have a hard time like maintaining a schedule. You'll have a hard time being on time. You'll have a hard time scheduling something out in the future. Like you lose perspective a little bit. And we all have this to a certain degree, right? So what I'd like you to do is reflect on the situation that that you've been reflecting on. And if you don't have one, just reflect on something that you'd like to shift. You'd like to see like more depth in how this plays out, right? A lot of times when things are unconscious, like what we've been talking about over the last few weeks, you kind of see the things of the normal everyday life, and there's like this thing running in the background, like a program or an app on your phone where it's just running, but you're not really aware of it, right? Every once in a while you get a little flash of it and you go, what is that? And then it floats away, right? When you have this greater level of depth with time, you can almost like slow things down so that you can go deeper into that and go, I can realize what's going on here. I can realize something in the unconscious or the subconscious. And I can have a different perspective. I can be less reactive. I can not be surprised by it. I can almost make it a friend or make it an ally, right? And so what I'd like you to do is just reflect on some situation, and I'm going to run you through a little bit of a process with the oil that you choose. So just keep your eyes closed. And the first time through, we're not even going to do it with an oil. We're just going to do the pattern. And take some long, slow, deep breaths. And as you're taking long, slow, deep breaths, your awareness is on the sex chakra, where the sex organs are. You're taking long, slow, Deep breaths. Now, move your awareness up to your back heart, the area between your shoulder blades. Your awareness is on the back throat. Your awareness is on the back throat, the middle of the back of your neck. And then your awareness is on the top of your head. And then just let go. Let go of everything and just let go. Let go of your thoughts. Let go of your thinking and your visualization. Just let go. Whatever thoughts arise, just observe them. Contemplate your pattern, your situation. Have a moment of reflection. It's not about judging good or bad or how do we make it go away. We're just simply observing. As we do this practice, as you do this work with time, it actually begins to integrate the higher nature and the lower nature, or the higher self and the lower self. And we think of times of what it's like to be grounded, right? Being grounded, we see it just as an end result, but even being grounded, there are steps, there are mechanisms in place. And you could say your ability to be grounded and present directly corresponds to how well your higher and lower natures are integrated. If they're not integrated very much, it's harder to stay grounded, it's harder to stay present. The more that they're integrated, the easier it becomes to stay grounded, to stay present. Doesn't mean that we don't get a little ungrounded or check out a little bit from time to time, but it becomes easier for us to get our feet under us again quicker. It becomes easier to see things in the unconscious and the subconscious. So this time, you're going to pull out the oil that you were inspired to use. And begin inhaling with your awareness on the sex chakra. Mhm. And just let go of the inhalation for a moment. Move your awareness to the back heart, the area between your shoulder blades. And again, begin inhaling. And let that go. Your awareness is on the back throat. You're taking long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on the back throat. And then move your awareness to the top of your head. And then just be still. Just be still for a moment. Now, remember this concept of time as we process this, it integrates the higher nature and the lower nature. Your lower nature is from the navel chakra down. So your navel, your spleen, your low back, your sex chakra, and your basic, which is the bottom of the tailbone. Your higher nature is the heart, the throat, the ajna, the forehead, and the crown. Now, the solar plexus is actually considered both of the higher and of the lower. So it is the mixing point between your higher nature and your lower nature. It is a lower correspondence of the Star of David, where the higher and lower mix. Right? So the health of your solar plexus, the cleanliness of your solar plexus, the regulation of your solar plexus is has direct impact on this integration between the higher and lower, right? These are things that we address in all the different classes, but here we're just being like just to the point, right? And so what I'd like you to do is you're not thinking about anything, you're just using the oil that you're inspired to use and begin inhaling with your awareness on the solar plexus. And then move your awareness to the back solar plexus, the mid-back area. You're taking long, slow, deep breaths to awareness on the back solar. And then just let go. Just let go. Just be still for a moment. And again, reflect on your pattern. You know, it's an interesting thing. We're going to be exploring this like a little bit later, a few months down the line, but you know how you're thinking, okay, stress, where is it at? Where is it in the body? How do we release it? But we're going to almost do the opposite approach. This would be a bit more of the mystical approach. Like, say you take the function of, I don't know, the immune system, for example, or the lymphatic system. And instead of going, okay, it's involved in these centers, it affects these parts of the body, it affects this physiology, you know, because even these centers, even these processes have a physical, an emotional, a mental, and a spiritual component. And they're impacted by all these same processes, the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body. And so, yes, stress is in certain parts of the body, and stress might make the immune system not function well, but each energy center has an influence over the system or the process. And so you almost kind of do it in reverse, where you go, okay, I must stay focused on the process or the issue that I'm trying to resolve. And then I start taking it through each of the energy centers. So the crown would have to do with like oneness, but it also could be repetitive thinking. It could be all kinds of things. You get down to the solar plexus, it's more about seeing things black and white, right and wrong, a sense of balance, and would be heavily impacted by emotions, right? So your immune system might be impacted by things going on in the crown, could be things going on in the solar plexus, could be things going down in the basic. And those areas might not have anything to do with that system, but still there's the influence, right? So there's ways of doing it like almost in reverse. And this is what it means to do like mystical healing. It's actually very difficult to teach because it's not of the logical mind. It's of the intuitive mind. It's about bringing something in. And so we've been walking towards this for quite a while. But I find this to be one of the deepest forms of healing, one of the deepest ways of finding that sense of peace and cultivating things that help us to grow and evolve. And so even with what we're doing right now, you're cultivating these aspects. This idea, this concept of time impacts so many things that we think about, so many things that we do, so many things that we experience, but we never think about, oh, if I could just get this time thing down, things would be different, right? We're not aware of it. It's more of the intuitive mind. So, I asked you to use an oil that you were inspired by, because this starts to tap into more of that mystical side. We all have different issues with this idea of time, the concept of time. But there's also things that are a universal struggle. And so there are some blends that if you want to go deeper on this, one is there is the blend that is for the deity, the Dharma protector, Mahakala. And Mahakala in the Buddhist tradition is a Dharma protector. It's associated with sometimes the protective side of Kuan Yin or Manjushri, or different aspects, different deities. But you could say Mahakala is the personification of time. It is literally the translation is personification of time, or maybe not exactly literally, but you get it. And then in the Kabbalistic tradition, the ones that did the Sharanagati class, there is a blend in there called Samek, like Samech. This also addresses the aspect of time, the concept of time. And so if you want to take it deeper, you can do that, but also you can play like how we did tonight. You can play with an oil that you feel inspired to use in this particular realm. And so let's do one more cycle. Reflect on your pattern. And begin inhaling with your awareness on the sex chakra. I see Samantha scrambled for her Samek. I didn't even give her a heads up, by the way. I let everybody have the thing about being inspired. Inspiration is important. Really important. You're inhaling, your awareness is on the sex chakra. You're taking a long, slow, deep breath. Move your awareness to the back heart, the area between the shoulder blades. the back throat, the middle of the back of your neck. And the top of your head. Your awareness is on the top of your head. You're taking long, slow, deep breaths. And just let go. Begin inhaling. Your awareness is on your solar plexus. The area below your ribs on the upper abdomen. And then go to your back solar plexus, your mid-back area. And just let go. Okay. So let's see what you notice for the week. And we'll do a different aspect next week, but we're going to be experimenting for a little while, contemplating, reflecting. So thanks for joining us tonight, you guys. Hope to see you on the weekend or next Tuesday or Wednesday.